Let me start with something uncomfortable, because this conversation needs to begin in discomfort. If you listen to CEOs, earnings calls, and tech conferences right now, you'd think we're living through a clean, elegant transition. Humans out, AI in. Efficiency up. Costs down. Shareholders happy. A neat technological handoff from messy people to obedient machines. But when you zoom out, not from a press release, but from what companies are actually experiencing, the story looks very different. What we're really watching is not an AI revolution. We're watching a management panic cycle. And it keeps repeating. To understand why companies are behaving this way, you have to rewind to the pandemic era. Between 2020 and 2021, companies like Fiverr became symbols of a new economy. Remote work exploded. Freelancing platforms surged. Fiverr's revenue jumped 77% in 2020, then another 57% in 2021, climbing from $189 million to over $300 million in 2 years. Its stock followed, going from roughly $25 in early 2020 to over $200 at the peak, valuing the company at more than $11 billion. Here's the problem: none of that growth was normal. It was crisis-driven demand, not structural transformation. But management treated it like destiny. Instead of asking, what happens when the world reopens? They asked, how do we lock this in forever? So they spent. Marketing. Super Bowl ads. Acquisitions. R&D dead ballooned from $3 million to $370 million in barely a year, a 12,000% increase. All built on the assumption that the pandemic economy was permanent. It wasn't. When demand slowed, something snapped. Revenue was still growing, but no longer exploding. Fiverr's growth fell to 12%, down from nearly 70% the year before. And suddenly, investors didn't care about narratives. They cared about profits. That's when the rhetoric changed. Growth at all costs became EBITDA discipline. All these translated into cut people. Cut risk. Cut complexity. And AI appeared at the perfect psychological moment. Because AI doesn't just promise productivity. It promises moral permission. If you lay off workers because business is hard, you look weak. If you lay them off because AI is the future, you look visionary. This is where corporate thinking went off the rails. Many executives assumed AI was like cloud computing: install it, scale it, done. Fire the humans. Drop in a model. But generative AI is not a vending machine. It's a probabilistic system that hallucinates. A recent MIT study found that only 5% of companies implementing generative AI saw meaningful financial impact. The other 95% saw no measurable improvement. That's not a rounding error. That's systemic failure. And yet, layoffs surged anyway. By late 2025, layoff announcements spiked globally, especially in middle management and entry-level roles, the very positions that historically train future leaders. This wasn't strategy. It was fear. Here's the subtle damage most people miss. AI doesn't just replace tasks. It collapses apprenticeship. In traditional organizations, skills are transmitted vertically. Novice works with expert, gradually absorbing judgment, context, and intuition. But AI allows experts to work faster without involving novices. Why slow down a senior engineer or lawyer by including juniors when AI can draft, summarize, or schedule instantly? As one researcher bluntly put it, if I don't need them, I won't involve them. The result? In jobs where AI performs most entry-level tasks, employment in those roles has already fallen 14% over 5 years. This isn't just a labor issue. It's a future leadership crisis. Companies are optimizing for today and quietly destroying tomorrow. Here's where the story turns ironic. More than 55% of companies that replaced workers with AI now regret it. Why? Because AI creates verification labor. Instead of doing the work, humans now check the AI's work. Instead of eliminating staff, companies shifted effort into oversight, error correction, and damage control. Medical documentation systems hallucinate patient details. Scheduling tools invent meetings. AI summaries fabricate statements never spoken. So companies didn't remove labor. They reallocated it badly. This pattern isn't new. In 2017, Elon Musk attempted to automate Tesla's Model 3 production almost entirely. Robots everywhere. Humans minimized. The result? Production collapsed. Machines broke multiple times a day. Bottlenecks everywhere. Bankruptcy nearly followed. The solution wasn't more automation. It was people. Tesla literally built a human-packed tent factory to survive. Musk later admitted publicly. Excessive automation was a mistake. Humans are underrated. That was mechanical automation. AI is far more fragile. Automation looks efficient on spreadsheets. But it creates single points of failure. Humans absorb shocks. They improvise. They compensate when systems fail. AI doesn't. One malfunctioning chatbot can derail customer trust. One hallucinated response can trigger compliance disasters. One broken workflow can cascade across an entire organization. That's why companies like Klarna, IBM, Taco Bell, and Duolingo are now quietly walking things back, rehiring, limiting AI scope, or reinserting humans into critical loops. Not because AI is useless, but because AI without humans is brittle. Let's pick up exactly where we left off, because this is where the story stops being about layoffs and starts being about markets, incentives, and belief systems. AI didn't just arrive as a tool. It arrived as a financial narrative. And Wall Street desperately needed one. Every major technology bubble has the same emotional core. In the late 1990s, it was the internet. In the mid-2000s, it was housing financialization. In the 2010s, it was zero-rate growth and infinite SaaS multiples. Today, it's AI. But notice something important: AI didn't rise during abundance. It rose during constraint. Higher interest rates. Slower growth. Aging demographics. Tight labor markets. Declining productivity. When executives and investors face structural slowdown, they don't look for realism. They look for salvation. AI promises exactly that. Cut costs by 30 to 40%. Eliminate inefficient labor. Scale output without scaling wages. Add trillions in market value through productivity. Some estimates floating around Wall Street claim AI could add $16 trillion to the S&P over time. That number should immediately make you suspicious. Because it assumes adoption without friction, error, or backlash. And history tells us that never happens. If this feels familiar, that's because it is. During the dot-com era, companies didn't need profits, they needed a website. Put .com in your name, and your valuation soared. Today, companies don't need revenue impact, they need AI first. Same psychology. Same investor fear of missing out. Same race to justify capital spending before someone else does. The cold fusion material you provided makes this comparison explicit. Most dot-com companies died, but a small handful survived and became giants. That's the part people forget. Bubbles don't mean technology is fake. They mean expectations are wrong. Here's where the AI story starts to crack. AI is expensive. Not a little expensive. Structurally expensive. NVIDIA's flagship AI GPUs cost roughly $30,000 to $40,000 each. Meta reportedly owns hundreds of thousands of them. Google tens of thousands. AI data centers are consuming so much power that AI alone has driven a 4% increase in U.S. electricity demand, a staggering number for a single technological category. Morgan Stanley estimates $3 trillion in global data center investment over the next 3 years. And here's the killer detail: running large AI systems costs tens of billions of dollars per year, while revenues remain far lower. One estimate puts OpenAI's annual infrastructure cost around $40 billion, with revenues closer to $15 to $20 billion. That gap is being filled by belief. Belief that monetization will arrive later. Belief that efficiency will magically improve. Belief that hallucinations will vanish. Which brings us to the core technical issue no one wants to say out loud. Large language models don't know things. They predict the next word based on probability. That's why they sound confident even when they're wrong, and why they never raise their hand and say, "I don't know." In consumer use, this is annoying. In enterprise use, it's dangerous. As the MIT research and workforce testimonials show, AI systems routinely fabricate meeting summaries, patient details, scheduling logic, and legal phrasing. The result isn't productivity. It's double work. Humans checking AI. Auditors reviewing outputs. Managers re-verifying decisions. That's why 55% of companies regret replacing humans with AI. They didn't remove labor. They changed its shape, and often made it worse. Now let's talk about the damage that doesn't show up in quarterly earnings. Entry-level jobs are disappearing. Not because AI can replace senior judgment, it can't, but because it can replace learning roles. Those early career positions where people make mistakes under supervision? Those are being erased. Research cited in your material shows that in roles heavily exposed to AI, employment has already declined by 14% over 5 years. And the logic behind it is brutally rational. Why slow an expert down by involving a novice? The problem is obvious, just not immediate. If everyone thinks that way, the entire pipeline collapses. In 3 to 5 years, companies will look around and ask, where did our mid-level talent go? And the answer will be, we fired them before they could exist. Why companies are quietly backpedaling? This is already happening. Klarna bragged that AI replaced 700 customer service staff, then later admitted service quality dropped and began rehiring. IBM replaced HR staff with AI, then discovered edge cases shattered the system. Taco Bell rolled out AI ordering systems to 500 locations, then scaled them back after errors and customer backlash. Duolingo went AI first, alienated users, and scrambled into damage control. Tesla learned this lesson before generative AI even existed. Full automation creates fragility, not resilience. These aren't isolated failures. They're systemic misjudgments. Automation looks efficient until something goes wrong. Humans absorb chaos. Machines amplify it. One chatbot glitch can spiral into a PR disaster. One hallucinated answer can trigger lawsuits. One broken workflow can freeze an entire organization. Humans are expensive, but they are adaptive shock absorbers. That's why companies that survive long-term don't eliminate people. They augment them. And the data supports this. 51% of leaders now say reskilling is strategically critical. 41% have increased training budgets instead of cutting headcount. The smarter firms aren't firing humans to install AI. They're giving humans better tools. If history is any guide, 3 things survive bubbles. Narrow, high-value AI tools. Ones that solve a single pain point extremely well, not general intelligence fantasies. Human-AI hybrids. Systems designed around oversight, judgment, and escalation, not replacement. Companies that resist narrative pressure. Firms that don't optimize for stock price applause but for operational reality. The MIT research makes this explicit. The successful AI deployments tend to be small, focused, and deeply integrated, often led by young teams solving specific problems, not enterprise-wide rollouts driven by fear. Here's the twist. AI will absolutely transform productivity. Just not the way executives imagined. Not as a clean replacement. Not as a shortcut to firing people. Not as a magic margin machine. It will be messy, slow, iterative, human-dependent. Exactly like every other real technological revolution. The companies that survive won't be the ones that shouted AI first the loudest. They'll be the ones that remembered a simple truth: technology scales output. Humans create resilience. And in an unstable world, resilience beats efficiency every time.